Hi, welcome to my course Microservices Interview Question Answer. My name is Shalain Chauhan. I'm Microsoft MVP, Technical Consultant, Corporate Trainer. In this course, you will learn about commonly asked interview question answer about microservices. So here I try to answer the things with the help of the appropriate diagram and the picture so that you will understand the microservices and microservices architecture in better way and you will be able to answer them. In this course, I have divided all the set of questions into the majorly 4 sections. In the first section, you will learn about interview question answer about microservices, microservices principles. Next, we will learn here microservices architecture and development tools related interview question answer. Then you will learn here microservices design patterns interview question answer. And finally, we talk about the 12 factors app related interview question answer. So let's get started. Question answer about the microservices. So what are the microservices? A microservices is a small unit that has only one responsibility, or you are writing over there a single logic which is going to solve a specific problem. So microservices are going to be solve a specific problem. So what are the code you are writing over there? That small unit is known as microservice. And microservices are the small independent services that work together to build highly automated, independent and evolving software. So ultimate goal of microservices is here. What are the software you are building with the various unit, those small unit we are just going to host separately, we are going to manage separately, we are just going to automate the deployment of those small unit with the help of CI/CD pipeline. So if you are following this style of building your project, so those small unit, those automated small unit are known as microservices. And guys, don't confuse with the word services, because microservices does not mean it must be a service. Microservice can be a UI, microservice can be a backend service. So it is a unit, it's a self-managed unit. So that unit can be the part of the front end, it can be the part of the backend services. And microservices you can build using the .NET, using the Node.js, using the Java and various other framework. Even a single project can have the microservices from the different platform. So there is no such rule, all the services in a single software you need to build using the one stack. So one microservice you can build using the JavaScript stack, another microservice you can build using the Node.js, and another microservice you can build using the Java, and other microservice can be from the .NET stack. What are microservices advantages? So microservices advantages are, these are language independent and framework independent. It means one microservice you can build using the Java language, another microservice you can build using the .NET, and another you can build using the Node.js. So microservices is a architectural pattern which can be used anywhere. It can be .NET, it can be Java, it can be PHP, it can be Python as well. The microservices support the independent development, deployment and versioning. So microservices enables you to build a software now using the various small units. And each unit can be built using the different language, different platform. So now the multiple teams are working together to building these separate unit. So we can deploy them independently, even we can do the versioning of those services separately. So this is the benefit you will find out of microservices. Even the microservices you can scale out in second without compromising the integrity of an application. So when it comes to scaling, so if you are using the Kubernetes cluster, if you are using the cloud for deploying your microservices, so there the scaling can be done in second without compromising the integrity of our application. Even we having the better fault isolation which keep the other services to work even failure. It means if one of the service in the microservices system will fail, so it will not impact the other services most. The other services will run fine without an issue. Now we having the zero downtime upgrade. So if you're willing to upgrade any microservice, provide a new release, so it can be done easily. Even the services can be from the different servers at data center. So one service you might host it on the server 1, another microservice you have hosted on server 2, or it can be the part of the different data center as well across the world. And the microservices support the CI/CD. In fact, to build the automated deployment, you need to implement the CI/CD in your microservices based architecture. The next question is here, how monolithic and layer service-oriented architecture and microservices architecture is different from each other. So to give the answer of this question, now let's understand how the monolithic application architecture look like. So in the monolithic, we are having the single unit. So everything we are writing in a single layer, and when it is coming to the N layer, so we just going to further decompose the monolithic architecture into the multiple layers. Even the similar style we having in the SOA as well, where we having the multiple services. So ultimately in the N layer and the SOA, we are going to have multi units. If we further decompose the N layer or service oriented architecture, then it will become the microservices. So microservices are more smaller unit as we have in the N layer and the service oriented architecture. So this picture representation is going to clear the differences between the monolithic N layer and microservices architecture when it is coming to writing the code. The next question is here, what are the microservices principles? So when you are building a microservice, like when you are going to decide to build the microservices architecture, you need to follow some principles. So these principles are, so microservices principles are like modeled around business domain. So whenever you are going to decide like how many services we are going to build for building this software, you need to identify the domain in your application. And after deciding the domain in your application, you can decide the number of microservices. Even sometimes it happens you are having a bigger application, there you might need to decompose the architecture into subdomain as well. Let's say you are going to build a microservices. So let's say for managing the account, you can create a separate microservices. For the catalog management, you can create a separate microservices, because these are the different domain. The next principle we having here, culture of automation. So to build the microservices in better way so that you can automate the deployment and the configuration, you need to implement the DevOps. So with the help of DevOps, we can implement the automation. The next principle we having here, hide implementation details. So here in microservices architecture, you can use the multiple technology, multiple framework. So one microservice is not aware of another microservices internal technology detail, what that microservices has been built and how that code is written over there. So we can have the mix of technology while building a software. The next principle we having here, decentralize all the things. It means if you are using the traditional architecture, there we follow the centralized database management approach. But here we having the decentralized approach. So here usually a single microservice having its own database. Sometimes we having, let's say, one or two microservices can use the shared database, but it cannot be more than that. So please try to decentralize the things so that it is easy to manage them independently, even the deploy them independently. Next principle we having here, deploy independently. So deployment can be done independently if they are self-contained, if they are going to manage the things in decentralized way. So deployment can be done independently with the help of DevOps CI/CD pipeline. The next one we having the isolate failure. If one of the microservices is failing, so it should not impact the other services in the system. So you should design the system in such a way. So failure of one microservice should not impact the other things. So this is the isolate failure. The next principle says highly observable. So each microservices must contain the sufficient information if there is an issue while performing something. So you should able to trace the things. You should able to troubleshoot the things. So troubleshooting can be done if you are collecting the necessary information, the necessary logs you are writing down at a one place. So by looking at the application log, you can figure out where might be the issue. So keep in mind while designing your microservices architecture for your project. So these are the very helpful principles that everyone must follow whenever you are going to build your project using the microservices. The next question is here, when to use microservices architecture. So microservices is not a suitable architecture in every case. There are few things you should consider or you should keep in the mind before using the microservices architecture in your application. So if you are having a large application that need high release of velocity, so there microservices you can use. But if you don't have this requirement, please don't use the microservices, because microservices based application are very complex as compared to the normal application architecture, or you can say the entire application architecture. The next is here, complex application that need to be highly scalable. So whenever you are having a complex application where you might be using the multiple framework, and now you need to scale the application on demand as per the requirement, so their microservices can help you to manage it in better way. Are you having an application with various rich domain and many subdomains? Means you having a ERP like style, and there you are managing so many domain and subdomain. So there also microservices architecture will help you. Or you can have another case. Let's say you are having an organization that is having multiple development teams. So one team is managing the one unit of the code using the Java, another team is managing the .NET, another team is managing the, let's say, Python for machine learning and AI. So in a single project, the multiple team can work together to make the complete software. Because if you're taking the example of data science and machine learning, so their data science, their Python is better. And when it is coming to the other aspect, so .NET or Java, let's say Node.js, you can use over there. The next question is here, what are the challenges of microservices? So obviously when you are building the microservices, there are so many challenges you will face being a developer. So from the application perspective, let's say from the client perspective, the microservices providing so many advantages. But from the development perspective, to manage the microservices architecture is difficult to manage. It is difficult to maintain. So what are the common challenges you will face? Let's have a look. So first is the complexity. A microservice application is more complex as compared to the equivalent monolithic or n-tier application. The second is development and testing. So building and testing a service that is having a dependency on another services need to understand the domain, need to understand the other microservices working as well. So it is sometimes difficult. So development testing is also difficult whenever two services having the dependency on each other. The next challenge is a lack of governance. So decentralized approach is going to lead so many problems in maintenance, because you might using multiple languages, you might using multiple framework for building the microservices architecture. So it will lead into the lack of governance. So here the to solve this problem is make sure you are using one of the stack. So try to stick with the one of the stack. Let's say either use .NET stack to building all the microservices where possible. Either use Java stack to build all the microservices. But if you don't have any option, let's go ahead. But keep in the mind you will have this challenge as well. The next challenge is here, network congestion latency. So ultimately when you will have so many services, so many microservices, let's say if you're taking the example of the Twitter and the Netflix, they have more than 500 microservices in their system. So think about when the 500 microservices behind the scene are communicating to each other. So microservices internal communication lead into the latency. So design the API carefully and try to use the asynchronous pattern wherever possible. Don't try to call them in synchronous way, because it will lead into the latency. We having other challenges as well. Like next challenge is data integrity. So as I said, usually microservices having its own database. So in that case, there would be the data integrity issue. It is also a challenge, because in the entire application we having a centralized place where we keeping all the database table, but here we are going to decentralize the things. So in multiple databases you are going to manage the data, so you need to take care of the things when you are going to manage the data. The next challenge you will find out of management. To be successful microservices architecture, it is mandatory to implement the DevOps culture. If you're not implementing the DevOps culture, you're not going to build the microservices architecture. You're not going to implement a better microservice architecture in your application. So please try to automate all the deployment, all the configuration with the help of DevOps tools. The next challenge is a versioning. So whenever you are going to provide a new release for your backend services, so be careful while deploying them. So make sure you are following the proper versioning policy, and you are taking care of the backward compatibility as well, so that the existing client will not break. The next challenge we have in the skill set. So microservices project need a highly skilled team. So if you are expecting that the fresher and the beginners will help you to build a microservices based application, don't expect them. Train your team properly with all the DevOps culture, with all the DevOps style, so that they will add the quality into your product. They will not face the challenges, they will not keep themselves in the trouble. These are the common challenges you will face whenever you are adopting the microservice architecture for your project. Question answer about microservices architecture and tools. So first question regarding this topic is here, do explain microservices architecture. So now let's understand how the microservices architecture should build. So here what I have done, I created the multiple microservices here. Let's say we having the service 1, we having the service 2, and similarly you will have the service n. So these services together are known as microservices because these are the smaller unit to manage the things. Now these services we never expose directly to the end user. Here we connect all these services through the API gateway, or you can say API gateway is responsible to provide a unified endpoint to expose these microservices. Now through the API gateway the client will interact. So this is the way how the services we have created. So these are the backend services, and these backend services endpoint we just unified through the API gateway. Now the client will interact with the API gateway. So here API gateway will responsible to reroute the request from the client to the backend microservice over there. And if for managing the database, each microservice, let's say having its own database, and we having the management and orchestration tool as well over there. So for management and the orchestration, you can use the Kubernetes, you can use the Docker and the others cluster. So commonly use the orchestration tool with microservices, we use Kubernetes cluster. And when it is coming to the communication between these backend microservices, we use event bus. So we having the event bus through the microservices will communicate to each other by sending the messages in asynchronous fashion. So please avoid to do the synchronous communication until it is not mandatory or required. Try to communicate through the messages. So this is a typical architecture where you can build the microservices and you can expose to the API gateway, and this is the way how the client will interact. The next question is how to move from an n-layer application to microservices app. Let's say you are having an existing application, that existing application having its own architecture. If the same architecture, let's say you have linked to migrate to the microservices, so how it will look like. So let's first look at our n-layer application architecture. So let's say you having your data access layer, you having your business layer where you created the multiple services, let's say catalog, authentication, order, and you are having the UI where you return your complete website UI code. And this website actually the people are accessing from the desktop, from the mobile phone through the internet. And here the data access layer obviously will interact with the database. That is a typical n-layer architecture for any application. If the same architecture, let's say you are willing to move into the microservices, so how it will look like. So same architecture we can move into the microservices like this way. So here the business logic we just separated into the backend microservices. So we just created a catalog microservice for this catalog one, and for this authentication we created this authentication microservice, and for this order we created this order microservice over there. and each microservice having its own database. So instead of having the centralized database, now we having the separate database for each microservice. And internet, they are communicating through the event bus. So for the event bus, you can use service bus, you can use RabbitMQ. And if you look at in this architecture, we having the API gateway. So usually to have the high availability, we create multiple API gateways. So we having here multiple API gateways through which we are exposing these microservices. And this UI also we have divided into two sections. So we having a public facing website and we having an internal support website. So this public facing website is only for the end user, which can be accessed through the internet. So here the user are accessing from the internet, this public facing website, and the internal support website is for a support team only. So that support team will access it through the intranet. So this is a typical architecture. You can understand, you can relate it, how the existing application can be moved to the microservices architecture. So next question is here, what are the microservices orchestration? Because in the previous answer we discussed about we need the orchestration. So what are the most popular orchestration you can use? So as I said, for the orchestration we use the Docker or we use the Kubernetes. So in the Docker we having the Docker Swarm, which we use to create the cluster, and in the Kubernetes we having the Kubernetes cluster. So you are having here two options, either go ahead with the unmanaged cluster where you are responsible to manage it. The other one we having the managed cluster, which is available in the cloud. So in the managed cluster we can use the Azure AKS in the Azure cloud. We can use AWS EKS, that is in AWS cloud. So for the better code management, I prefer to use the cloud managed cluster because there the things are self-managed. You don't need to worry about managing the nodes behind the cluster. But if you are good in the administration and you are going to run everything in your on-prem environment, so you can configure over there Kubernetes or Docker Swarm to create your own cluster and deploy your microservices over there. Next question is here, what are the microservices deployment options in the cloud? So when it is coming to the Azure, when it is coming to AWS, so these are the two most popular cloud the people are using across the world. So here in this answer I'm covering only two cloud, AWS and Azure. Let's see what are the options are available. So in Azure we having the web app, we having the Azure function, we having the virtual machine, we having the Azure AKS, and we having the service fabric. So these options are available in Azure cloud to deploy your microservices. And here the most popular one is here Azure AKS and service fabric. So these are the recommended one for managing your microservices in better way. But when it is coming to the AWS, so we having the Elastic Bean Stack, we having the AWS Lambda, we having the EC2, we having the AWS EKS. So these options are available in AWS cloud if you are willing to deploy your microservices in AWS cloud. So I prefer here AWS EKS. It's a self-managed cluster. So these options are available for deploying your microservice in Azure and AWS. Similarly, we having the Kubernetes cluster in Google Cloud as well. So that Google Kubernetes cluster you can use for deploying the microservices over there. Question answer about the microservices design patterns. So first question is here, what are the various design pattern for microservices? So for microservices, we having the various design pattern, like we having the decompose patterns. In the decompose, we having these pattern, or like you can say these style, decompose by business capability, decompose by subdomain, and we having the Strangler pattern. The next types of pattern we having the integration pattern. So for integration or microservices, we having the API gateway pattern, we having the aggregator pattern, we having the client side UI composition pattern. Then we having the database pattern. So how to manage your database. So we can have database per service, we having the shared database per service, we having the CQRS pattern, we having the Saga pattern. The next set of design patterns for microservice are communication pattern. So for communication, we having the request reply. So for communication, we having the request response pattern, messaging pattern, and event driven pattern. So these pattern we use whenever microservices are going to communicate to each other. The next set of patterns we have the cross-cutting concern patterns. So here it says you should externalize the configuration. The next set of patterns we have the cross-cutting concern patterns where we having the externalize the configuration, service discovery pattern and circuit breaker pattern. So these are the cross-cutting pattern we having. The next set of patterns we have observability pattern where we having the log aggregation, performance metrics, distributed tracing and health check. So make sure when you are going to observe any microservices, you are collecting the sufficient data about that microservices so that you can troubleshoot that one. The next set of pattern we having here deployment patterns. How the microservice you can deploy. So we having multiple service instance per host, service instance per host, serverless deployment you can use over there, even service deployment platform. So these various design patterns we use whenever we are going to follow the microservice architecture while building our project. And the next question is what are the decomposition patterns? Microservices all about making the loosely coupled services applying the single responsibility principle. But however, to break in an application into the smaller pieces, it should be done logically. You should have the complete understanding of the domain and the subdomain in the application so that you can decompose that complete project into the smaller pieces, or you can say the smaller microservices. So how should do the decomposition of an application into the smaller services? So there the decomposition patterns comes in the picture. So solution for this problem is here you should use the decomposition pattern. So you should decompose your application by business capability. You should decompose by the subdomain, or if it is a already built application, so that existing application we cannot migrate immediately. So this kind of pattern is for the legacy application. So when it is coming to decomposing the business capability in subdomain, you should understand them. So let's say we having the account management, we having the catalog management, and we having the payment management. So design the microservices around the business capability. The next question is what are the integration patterns? So to again understand the integration pattern, let's understand the problem. So when you broke an application to smaller microservices, so few concerns you need to address. Let's say there are the multiple calls or the multiple microservices by the different channels would be there. And there is a need for handling the different type of protocols over there, and different consumer might need a different format of the responses. So these are the problem you should address when you are going to integrate the microservices. So how these problem you can address? You can address these problem using the API gateway pattern, using the aggregator pattern, and using the client side UI composition pattern. So ultimate goal of API gateway pattern is to provide a unified endpoint through which we are exposing the microservices, and sometimes we need to get the aggregate data from more than one microservices. So there you should follow the aggregate pattern. And when it is coming to the UI side, in the UI side, you should compose the UI from more than one component. So there you can use React, there you can use Angular component style for compositing your UI page over there. The next question is what are the database patterns? So to implement the database pattern, you need to address the following things. Like services must be loosely coupled, deployed, developed and scale independently. And the business transaction may enforce the invariant that span multiple services. Sometimes it happens you are doing the database operation into more than one microservice, or you can say with the help of more than one microservices. So data would be obviously distributed over there. So how we can maintain the transaction among the microservices? And sometimes a business transaction need to query the data from multiple microservices. So how we can address these issues? So these issues actually going to handle with the help of database patterns. So in the database, we having the database per service, shared database you can have, which can be shared among more than one microservices. Even you can have the CQRS pattern, where you can give the some responsibility to the services, let's say only for query, and another service will have the responsibility to perform the insert, update and delete operation. So next question is it, what are the communication patterns? So to understand the communication pattern, let's understand the problem. Like what are the various microservices you are having in your project? So how they will communicate with each other? So to address this issue, we having the various communication patterns. So first communication pattern is a request response. So we having the HTTP and HTTPS, that is a synchronous protocol. So first pattern we having here request response. So you know, as we having HTTP or HTTPS, so it is a synchronous protocol. So client send a request and wait for the response from the service. So whenever you need the immediate response from the another service, so you can use the request response pattern for the communication purpose. The second pattern we having the messaging pattern, like instead of making the synchronous request, you can communicate through messages. That would be the asynchronous pattern. So instead of waiting for the response, now the services will communicate to each other through the messages. The next pattern we having the event driven pattern. So unlike the messaging pattern where the service is having a common message structure, in the event driven approach, the services will communicate to each other through the events. So when a particular event will raise, then the communication will start. So that event information we are going to store somewhere, and from there we will read it and the receiver will react to that particular event. So these are the three communication patterns we use when we are building our microservices project. The next question is here, what are the observability patterns? So first understand the problem, how to understand the behavior of an application and troubleshoot the problems. So when you are having, let's say, 100 of microservices, it is very difficult to understand the behavior. It is very difficult to troubleshoot the problem. So what can be the best practices so that we can easily troubleshoot the issues? So you should follow the log aggregation pattern. So just aggregate all the microservices logs at one place so that you can query the aggregate logs and figure out what happens in service 1, what happens in service 2 when they are communicating to each other. The second we having the application metrics. So make sure you are gathering the sufficient statistic of the operation so that later on you need to take any decision, you can easily take it. The next one we having the exception tracking. So report all the exception to a centralized place so that we can aggregate them, we can query them and notify to the developers, let's say this is the issue, like this is the exception raised by this service at this point. That is about the exception tracking. The next pattern we having the health check API. So ultimately when you are using the HTTP endpoint, your service are going to expose through the HTTP protocol. So how we will figure out which service is responding, which service is not responding, because when you are having, let's say, 100 of microservices, it is difficult to figure out which is working fine, which is not working fine. So we should have the health checkup API so that we can constantly aware of which service is online, which service is offline. The next pattern is here audit logging. So record all the user activity in the database so that we can do the audit for the user activity. The next question we having here, what are the cross-cutting concern patterns? So for understanding the cross-cutting concern pattern, let's understand the problem, like how to handle the cross-cutting concern. Let's say the configuration, service discovery, there are various cross-cutting concern we should address. So you should always externalize the configuration. So instead of keeping the configuration at the code level, you should externalize them. So when you're going to deploy the things, so let's say if you're using the Kubernetes cluster, and if you're using over there, let's say the Docker, so we can keep our configuration in the YAML file, and we can keep them when we are building the CI/CD pipeline. So this is the way how the configuration we can externalize. Even whatever the credential we are having, so we having the key vault option available in the cloud. So your credential you can keep in the key vault, and whenever there is a requirement to get the credential from the key vault, we can fetch it. So don't keep these things at the code level. The next one we having the service discovery. So how does the client of an API based service discover the network location of a service instance? So ultimate goal of how can discover the service, where the service is here. So that thing would be done by the service discovery. So we having the console. So console is a one which can be used for the service discovery. So instead of looking up for the service availability yourself, just give the responsibility of service discovery to the console. The next we having the circuit breaker. So invoke a remote service via proxy. So that fails immediately when the failure rate of the remote call exceeded from a threshold. So sometime it happens you are going to call a service, but that service might not be available. So through the circuit breaker pattern, it can be handled easily. Because when the number of call are going to be exceeded from a threshold, it should not respond. Let's say sometime it happens somebody is using the board for hitting your microservices within a 1 second, thousand of times. So that thousand of time request within a second we need to prevent. So that can be done through the circuit breaker. The next question is here, what are the deployment patterns? So now the question is here, we build our microservices. Now how we will deploy them? So for the deployment, we having the various pattern. One of them we can use as per a requirement. First pattern is here, multiple service instances per host. It means we can deploy the multiple service instances on a single virtual machine, on a single host. Let's say you're having 10 microservices, 10 microservices, one instance would be the part of one virtual machine. The second one is service instance per host. It means each service, an instance will have its own virtual machine, its own container. Means for one service you will have a one host machine. In the previous case, one host machine is going to be used by the multiple service instances. The next option we having the serverless deployment. So if you're using the cloud, in the cloud we can use a serverless deployment option. In Azure you can use Azure function. In AWS you can use AWS Lambda. The next option we having the service deployment platform. So this is the most recommended one. So instead of using the virtual machine, instead of using the function app, we can create a Kubernetes cluster, or we can create the Docker Swarm cluster through which we can deploy the application and we can manage it. Question answer about the 12-factor app. So first question is here, what is 12-factor app? So 12-factor app is a methodology which was created by the Adam Wiggins and engineers at Heroku while building the Heroku platform in 2011. So what is the actually 12-factor app methodology? So it is a fundamental guideline for building any cloud ready application. So when it is coming to build the cloud ready application, so what practices, what methodology you should follow. So those are the part of the 12-factor app. So 12 factors app actually are the proven practices around the version control, environment configuration, dependency isolation, executing the application as stateless resources, working with the backing services like database, queue, and much more. So these are the common things we are going to address, we are going to do when you are going to follow a microservice architecture. So 12 factors are those guidelines. If you will refer them, you will understand how to address the things in better way in a microservices architecture. So next question is here, what are the various 12 factors? So these 12 factors are, we having the code base, where we having the one code base and many deploy. Means a single code base you can deploy to the different environment. Then we having the dependencies. So dependencies you should explicitly declare and isolate them. It can be done with the help of package manager console. If you're using the Node.js like JavaScript framework, we are using npmjs.com. For .NET we are having NuGet. For Java we having the Maven. The third factor is here config. So store the configuration in the environment. So that the configuration latest setting we have, you should store at environment specific file. So create a separate environment file for production, for staging, for the testing. The next one we having the fourth factor is here, backing services. So treat the backing services as a attached resources. So what are the various backing services? Let's say we having the sending the email, we having the database management. So these are the backing services. The fifth factor is here build, release and run. So we should strictly separate the build and run stages. So when you are creating your CI/CD pipeline, so you should have a separate build pipeline, separate release pipeline. We should not mix them together. The sixth factor is here processes. So execute the app as a one or more stateless processes. So ultimately, when we are going to manage our application, so it should be as a process. So if you are using the Docker and the Kubernetes, so Docker and the Kubernetes style of building the application, already following the 12 factors principle, or you can say 12 factors guideline. If you will try to understand them in better way, try to relate them as you are building your application with the help of Kubernetes and the Docker. Then the next factor is a port binding. So you should export the services by port binding. So whenever a pod, like whenever a service we are running in the Docker, so let's say in the Kubernetes, so how we expose them? We expose through the port binding process over there. Then we having the next factor is concurrency. So we should scale out via the process model. So when it is coming the scaling the things in the Kubernetes cluster, in the Docker Swarm cluster, so scaling can be done through the services. So we can scale out through the processes over there. The next factor we having the disposability. So maximize the robustness with fast startup and the graceful shutdown. So how it can be done? It can be done if you are going to run your microservice as a pod inside a Kubernetes cluster, inside a Docker Swarm cluster. So it will start up as a fast because the containers can run fastly and they're going to run as a process. Even when it is coming to shutdown, they will shut down in a graceful way as well. Next factor we having is the DAB and the prod parity. So we should keep the development staging and the production as simpler as possible. It means when you're going to manage the environment for your application deployment, so try to manage the environment similar. It should not be the case the production is having very old release and in the staging and in the the development we having the latest releases which might not be deployed to production for more than 1 year, let's say 1 year. In that case, that would be the huge difference over there. So make the releases, make the sprint as small as possible, and what are the configuration setting we are having, try to give them a similar things over there. The next factor we having here logs. So treat the logs as event streams so that you can easily collect them, you can easily query them. So for logging purpose, you can use Elk Stack. So this is a commonly used practice in the microservice architecture. Then we having here our 12 factors here admin processes. So run the admin or management task as one of processes. It means the admin process should not be stop or start along with your application process. They should be run as a separate process. So your application process should be separated and your management process should be separated. So these are the common guidelines and practices if you will follow while building your microservice architecture, they will help you. So usually when you are going to deploy your application using the Kubernetes cluster and the Docker Swarm cluster, already these factors you are following over there. So these factors has been introduced before the popularity of Kubernetes and the Docker Swarm. But still in the interview, so many people ask, what are the 12 factors? The next question is, what are the advantages of 12 factor app? So the advantages are use declarative formats for setup, the automation. This minimize the time and the cost for the new developers for joining the project. The next benefit you will have, it have a clean contract with the underlying operating system and offering the maximum portability between the execution environment. So it can be done if you are using the Docker and the Kubernetes, it can be achieved easily. The next benefit you will find is suitable for the deployment on modern cloud platform. So whether you are using AWS, Google Cloud and Azure, so their deployment can be done if you are using these practices. So thus it is removing the need for the server and the system administration. So now you don't need to worry about for managing the system and the server yourself. And limits differences between the development, production, and enabling the continuous deployment for maximum agility. So obviously, whenever you are going to provide the frequent releases for your product, and it can be migrated easily from production, from development environment to the testing environment, and testing to staging and staging to production. So it can be done easily when we having the similar configuration everywhere, and you have implemented the CI/CD pipeline over there. So next benefit you will find out, you can scale up your application without facing any major challenge with respect to the tooling, architecture, or development. So ultimate goal of 12-factor review is to improve the performance, to boost up your development activity. I hope you will find out these set of answers helpful while facing your interview on microservices. If you liked it, please share it with others so that others people can take the benefit these set of question answer. And if you came to the channel, please do subscribe and click the bell icon, and please like the video, because to prepare such content we need to put so much effort. Thank you for watching the video. Bye.